They'll devour her, my granddaughter. The old YAKUT hunter, his face etched with 90 winters, bellowed, a cry tearing through the 70 air. With a lacerated heart and his ancestral blade in hand, he dashed through the relentless blizzard, his eyes fixed on the horde of 1,000 howling wolves surrounding the spot where his little granddaughter had vanished. Each step was a battle against the ice and despair. Every fiber of his being screamed for vengeance, certain that the worst had happened. But what he discovered, as he approached the clearing illuminated by the pale dawn, was something that challenged his entire existence and made him question nature's very savagery. Atai stopped abruptly, the icy air burning his lungs. But the physical pain was insignificant compared to the shock that paralyzed him. His eyes, accustomed to 9 decades of tundra, widened, unable to process the image before him. There was no blood, no trace of a struggle. Instead of the imagined terror, his granddaughter was there, nestled, not among sharp teeth but snuggled, sleeping soundly in a bed of snow, warmed by the bodies of 2 giant wolves, who seemed more like guardians than threats. They were magnificent, with thick, greyish coats that blended perfectly with the environment. One of them, with amber eyes and alert ears, kept its head raised, observing the surroundings with surprising calm. The other, larger and darker, rested its head gently on the girl's shoulder, like a silent guardian. Her breathing was soft and rhythmic, the vapor of her breath forming small clouds in the frozen air. One of the child's hands was outstretched, her fingers almost touching the soft, warm fur of the sleeping wolf. There was no fear on her face, only the innocence and peace of a deep, secure sleep that left him breathless. The ceremonial knife, firm in his hand, now felt strange and heavy, almost ridiculous. The blind fury that had driven him for miles dissipated, replaced by overwhelming disbelief and confusion. 1,000 wolves. He had come to face 1,000 wolves, to rescue his granddaughter from certain death, and he found a scene of wild tenderness that defied all logic. His ancestral wisdom, forged in generations of hunters and the harsh school of relentless survival, crumbled. He had always known that nature was unforgiving, a brutal force demanding respect and sacrifice, but he had never known it held such delicacy. This transcended his understanding, a dissonant melody in his symphony of life and death. The wind howled, but Atai felt no cold. He felt only the ice in his heart breaking, not from pain, but from revelation. The other wolves of the pack, present in the shadows, kept a respectful distance, as if participating in a silent pact, observing the scene with a passivity that belied their fierce reputation. Atai squinted, searching for deception, a cruel trap, but there was nothing but the raw, naked truth. The girl was safe, warm, protected by the very animals he had sworn to destroy. A warm tear traced a path down his wrinkled face, not from sadness, but from a complex emotion he couldn't name, relief, shame, or a deep and unexpected admiration. He had underestimated the vastness of nature's heart, the empathy that could blossom even in the harshest conditions. His journey had not been in vain, but its purpose had transformed. He was no longer the hunter seeking vengeance, but the witness to a silent miracle, an invisible link connecting his granddaughter to the world's wildness, rewriting the laws he thought he knew. Atai felt a new kind of warmth, not from fire, but from understanding, ignite in his chest. His world, once so defined, expanded to embrace a mystery that promised to change everything. Atai let the ceremonial knife slip from his wrinkled hand, falling softly onto the snow without a sound. The muffled thud was almost a sigh, the echo of a battle that would never happen, of a vengeance that had crumbled to dust. His eyes couldn't stray from the scene before him, the image of his granddaughter sleeping among the wolves, a sight that rewrote every page of his long life. He felt the weight of his own assumptions, the shame of his blind fury. which had led him to see monsters where there were unexpected guardians. The amber-eyed wolf, which had been observing the surroundings, now slowly turned its head towards Atai. There was no aggression in its gaze, only a deep calm, almost a silent invitation to understanding. It was a look that seemed to say, "See, understand." Atai swallowed hard, a lump tightening in his throat. How could he, a man who had lived 90 years in communion with nature, have been so profoundly mistaken? His ancestral wisdom, so proudly cultivated, now seemed an empty shell before the truth that was revealing itself. He observed the girl's soft breathing, her small chest rising and falling rhythmically beneath her fur garment. The vapor of her breath danced in the icy air, a testament to life, warmth, and safety. The larger wolf, still with its head resting on her shoulder, delicately moved a paw, adjusting itself to offer more comfort. Atai perceived the care, the almost human tenderness in that wild gesture. It was not the brutality he expected, but an instinctive protection, an empathy that transcended species barriers. The forest shadows still held the other wolves of the pack. Their presences felt but not clearly seen. They remained distant like a silent court, witnessing the unusual pact between the child and her guardians. Atai felt a shiver, not of fear, but of admiration. Those animals, which he feared as death itself, were capable of a gentleness he would never have imagined. The vastness of Yakutia, with its dangers and challenges, also harbored secrets of compassion that he, in his long journey, had never unveiled. A new light began to shine in Atai's heart, a light that dispelled the darkness of his prejudice. Nature was not merely an implacable force to be dominated or feared. It was a complex tapestry of life, where interconnectedness and empathy could emerge in the most unexpected places. The girl, his granddaughter, with her pure innocence, had unveiled a mystery that he, with all his experience as a hunter, would never have perceived. She was not prey, but a bridge between worlds. Atai took a hesitant step forward, his feet sinking slightly into the snow. The amber-eyed wolf fixed its gaze on him again, and Atai felt a strange connection, almost as if the animal was reading his soul. He no longer felt the need to fight, to avenge. He felt only the desire to understand, to learn from that scene that dismantled his worldview. The journey that had begun with despair and fury now transformed into a pilgrimage of self-discovery, an invitation to redefine what it meant to be human and what it meant to belong to the vast and mysterious tapestry of life in Yakutia. Atai slowly raised a hand, an uncertain gesture, almost a silent request for permission. The amber-eyed wolf tilted its head slightly without averting its gaze. A tremor ran through Atai's aged body. It wasn't the biting cold, but the pure emotion of a moment that transcended reason. He knelt with difficulty in the snow. His eyes, once filled with despair, now shone with awe and profound humility, absorbing every detail of the scene before him. He observed the girl more closely. Her rosy skin, warmed by the furry bodies, contrasted with the immaculate white of the snow. A small smile played on her lips, completely oblivious to the danger her grandfather had imagined. Atai reached out to his granddaughter, his wrinkled fingers trembling slightly. He wanted to touch her, to assure himself that she was alive and well, but he hesitated, fearing to disturb the delicate peace between the child and her wild guardians. The larger wolf, which had seemed asleep, raised its head. Its dark, almost black eyes met Atai's. There was a depth in them, an intelligence beyond animal instinct. Atai felt he was before beings who were not mere predators, but guardians of an ancestral secret, of a forgotten wisdom. The pack in the shadows remained motionless, a silent presence that validated the scene, as if all 1,000 wolves had agreed to that unusual pact. Atai closed his eyes for an instant, allowing the image to imprint itself. The fury, the fear, the thirst for vengeance, all had vanished, carried away by the icy wind. In their place, a current of love and gratitude flowed, not only for his granddaughter's life, but for the revelation those animals had provided. He felt small, insignificant before the grandeur of nature, yet connected to it in a way he had never before experienced. He opened his eyes and met the amber-eyed wolf's gaze again. This time, Atai felt no fear, but a mutual acceptance, a wordless understanding. It was as if the wolf invited him to share that moment, to witness the beauty of wild compassion. The old hunter, who had spent his life reading the signs of the tundra, realized there was a new language to learn, a grammar of kindness written in the footprints on the snow, an invisible link between all creatures. Atai moved with more confidence, approaching the girl. He noticed a small mammoth bone amulet, which he himself had carved, hanging around his granddaughter's neck, almost hidden by the wolf's fur. It was a symbol of protection, a silent prayer from the ancestors. The protection had come not from human strength, but from nature itself, which he had so feared. A wave of warmth spread through his chest, a renewal of faith. Life in Yakutia was brutal, yes, but also capable of miracles. Atai felt the need to share this story, to recount his granddaughter's legend not as a tragedy averted, but as a testament to the interconnectedness of all lives. He stood with a new purpose, not to hunt, but to protect, to honor this newly discovered truth. Atai straightened up in the snow, his physical exhaustion overshadowed by the clarity that flooded his mind. His eyes, once clouded with despair and fury, now saw the world through a new lens. The ceremonial knife lay forgotten, a symbol of a past he was leaving behind. The truth, revealing itself before him, was more powerful than any weapon, sharper than any blade. Life, even in relentless Yakutia, was a complex dance of interconnectedness and compassion. He watched his granddaughter, still asleep, a small point of warmth and innocence in the vast white. The two wolves, silent guardians, seemed to sense the change in the air, the absence of threat from the old hunter. The amber-eyed wolf blinked slowly, almost a nod of recognition. Atai felt a warmth spread from his chest to his fingertips. Not from the sun or fire, but from acceptance, from profound understanding. He was no longer an intruder, but part of that sacred moment. His thoughts flew to the ancient stories told by the flickering light of campfires about forest spirits and the invisible bonds that united all creatures. He had always listened to them with respect, but had seen them as metaphors. Now, he understood with his heart. Ancestral wisdom was not just about hunting, but about a deep reverence for life. His granddaughter, in her purity, had become the link to this forgotten understanding. Atai took a deep breath, the icy air filling his lungs with invigorating freshness. He couldn't simply take the girl and leave, not after such a miracle. There was a respect to be maintained, a bond to be honored. He knew that nature was an open book for those who read its signs, and those wolves were teaching him a lesson worth more than all the hunts of his life. The larger wolf, with its head near the girl, moved delicately. Atai noticed the child's breathing change slightly, a soft sigh. She was waking up. Atai remained motionless, fearing to break the spell, alert the wolves, or frighten his granddaughter. He watched her slowly open her eyes, blinking against the faint light of dawn. A yawn escaped her lips, and she stretched, nestling into the wolves' warm bodies. There was no fear in her brown eyes, only the familiarity and peace of someone waking in a safe, cozy place. She lifted her head, and her eyes met Atai's. A sleepy smile formed on her face. "Grandpa Atai," she murmured, her voice hoarse, extending a small hand to him. Atai felt a wave of emotion that almost overwhelmed him. Warm tears streamed down his face again, but this time they were of pure joy, and gratitude. His granddaughter was alive, safe, and had forged an unthinkable connection with the wild heart of Yakutia. The wolves, attentive, watched the interaction, their gazes fixed on the girl and the old man, as if awaiting the next step. The amber-eyed wolf gave a low growl, almost a purr, and licked the girl's hand. She laughed, a crystalline sound in the silent vastness of the snow. The scene was of such pure beauty that Atai felt his heart expand, embracing new understanding. He had come to fight, but realized his granddaughter didn't need to be rescued from the wolves, but from his own limited worldview. Atai knew this story would change his life and his villages forever. Atai, his heart overflowing, knelt in the snow, extending his arms. The girl, with a sleepy smile, disentangled herself from the wolves, crawling into her grandfather's arms. The embrace was a balm, melting the ice of 90 winters. He held her tight, feeling the warmth of her small body, the scent of snow and life. Tears of pure happiness dampened her hair. The two wolves, silent guardians, rose majestically. The amber-eyed one approached, sniffing the air, and touched its wet nose to the girl's hand, which she caressed without hesitation. The other wolf, larger and darker, watched with an intensity Atai interpreted as profound vigilance. The pack, in the shadows, kept its distance. The tension had vanished, replaced by mutual acceptance. "Grandpa, they kept me warm," the girl said, her voice a sweet whisper. "They're my friends." Atai looked at the wolves, then at his granddaughter. The simplicity of her words, the purity of the connection, dismantled any doubt. His wisdom about the wild seemed incomplete. His granddaughter, with innocence, had accessed a deeper truth. He stood up with the girl in his arms, feeling her light weight, but the immense weight of responsibility. How would he explain it to the village? How would he make his hunting brothers, his neighbors, understand that the 1,000 wolves were not just predators, but guardians, capable of an empathy that defied nature? The task seemed monumental, a social and emotional obstacle as vast as the tundra. Atai looked at the wolves. The amber-eyed one took a step back, and the larger one followed. They didn't flee, but moved away with silent dignity, blending into the forest shadows. The entire pack began to move, disappearing into the white vastness, leaving behind footprints in the snow and the vivid memory of a miracle. Atai felt a lump in his throat. He couldn't simply leave. There was a silent farewell, an acknowledgement. He nodded towards the emptiness where the wolves had been, a gesture of respect and gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice choked. His granddaughter, nestled in his arms, didn't seem sad about their departure. For her, it was natural. The journey back would be long and challenging, not just physically, but because of the story he needed to tell. Atai knew many would doubt, for the legend of 1,000 wolves as enemies was deeply rooted. But he held the truth in his arms, living proof that nature was complex and compassionate. He needed to be the voice of this new understanding, the herald of a justice that transcended hunter and prey. With his granddaughter snuggled close, Atai began to walk, leaving the clearing. Each step was driven by a new purpose, a mission of overcoming that went beyond his own life. He was no longer just Atai the hunter, but the guardian of a secret, the link between the human world and wild empathy. Yakutia, in its merciless vastness, had revealed its deepest heart to him, and he was ready to share it, rewriting the legends of his people. He looked at the small mammoth bone amulet around his granddaughter's neck, which now shone with new meaning. It was not just a symbol of protection, but a reminder of the invisible bond that connected all beings. Atai felt that his life's journey, which he thought was nearing its end, had just begun. With a new and inspiring direction, he had a story to tell, one that would change his village's perception of the world and of themselves. Anya pressed her granddaughter against her chest, the small mammoth bone amulet brushing her wrinkled cheek. Each step in the soft snow was an effort, but the fragility of her 90 years and her blurred vision, a result of a life under Yakutia's relentless sun and ice, were overcome by the strength of her purpose. She wasn't just taking her granddaughter home, she was carrying a truth that could shake the foundations of her village. The icy wind whipped at her garments, but the warmth of the girl in her arms was a shield against the cold and fear. "Grandma, will the tigers miss me?" the girl asked, her tiny voice sounding strangely loud in the tundra's silence. Anya shivered, not from cold, but from the innocence of the question. How could she explain to her people that the 700 Siberian tigers, terrifying predators that roamed the region, had been guardians? The village lived under the constant shadow of fear of these animals, and her granddaughter's story would be seen as madness, perhaps even a sign that Anya had lost her mind. Her feet sank into the snow, and the journey back seemed longer than the outward one, not due to distance, but to the weight of the revelation. The sight of a Siberian tiger, even a single one, was enough to sow panic. 700 of them were a legend of terror, a relentless enemy. Anya, with her limited vision, relied more on sound and smell. She heard the crunch of snow beneath her feet, the distant howl of the wind, and smelled the pungent scent of pine and ice. But beneath it all, there seemed to be a subtle, wild musk trail, which she now associated not with danger, but with a protective presence. Suddenly, a distant sound broke the wind's monotony. It wasn't the howl of a tiger, nor the rustling of branches. It was the sound of human voices and the sharp barking of dogs. Anya's heart pounded. It was the village patrol, no doubt, coming in search of the girl. A momentary relief flooded her, quickly replaced by growing anxiety. How would they react? Would they see her granddaughter and rejoice? Or would the sight of old Anya, with the girl unharmed but with such an unbelievable story, provoke distrust? She hugged her granddaughter tighter. "We're almost there, my love," she whispered, her voice hoarse. The girl, sensing her grandmother's tension, snuggled closer. The dog's barks grew louder, closer. Anya could now distinguish the blurred silhouettes of men and dogs approaching through the sparse blizzard. She took a deep breath, preparing for the confrontation she knew was inevitable. This would not be a simple rescue, but the beginning of a battle for understanding and acceptance. The patrol leader, Borislav, a robust and respected hunter, was the first to see them. His eyes, accustomed to tracking prey and enemies, widened in disbelief. "Anya! The girl!" he cried, his voice choked with relief and shock. The other hunters and dogs stopped, observing the scene. Anya, the partially blind elder, with her granddaughter in her arms, seemed like an apparition. The turning point was not the encounter itself, but the expression on the men's faces, a mixture of hope and a deep, almost palpable, incredulity. Anya's true challenge was just beginning. They were alive, yes, but the truth Anya carried was a burden heavier than any snow. Borislav took a hesitant step, his eyes fixed on the girl in Anya's arms. How did you find her, elder? And unharmed?" His voice, usually firm, trembled with a mixture of relief and confusion. The other hunters, faces marked by cold and worry, murmured, their silent questions hanging in the icy air. They had expected the worst, but never Anya, the almost blind elder with the child safe and sound. Anya felt the weight of all eyes. Her blurred vision barely distinguished the men's outlines, but she felt the intensity of their disbelief. She was with them, Anya began, her voice hoarse with emotion and exhaustion. The tigers, they kept her warm. The girl, feeling her grandmother's embrace, lifted her head. "Yes, Grandma, the tigers are my friends. They're so warm." A heavy silence fell. The murmurs ceased. Borislav frowned, his eyes narrowing. Tigers, Anya? You mean the 700 tigers? The ones that terrorize our village? There was skepticism in his voice, mixed with concern for the old woman's sanity. Another hunter, young Dmitri, stepped forward. Elder, cold and worry can deceive us. We know of your pain, but the tigers don't make friends with humans. Anya felt a pang of frustration. How could she make them understand? Words seemed inadequate to describe her own truth. They weren't monsters, Borislav, she insisted, her voice gaining strength. They were guardians, two of them enormous, nestled beside her, protecting her from the cold. She gestured with her free hand, trying to paint the image in the air, but her movements were slow and uncertain. Borislav exchanged a look with the other men. On their faces, Anya perceived a reluctance to contradict an elder, but also the impossibility of accepting her story. Anya, we need to take you back to the village. There, with warmth and food, you can tell us everything more clearly. The suggestion was gentle, but the subtext was clear. They thought she was delirious. Anya hugged her granddaughter tighter. The small mammoth bone amulet around her neck seemed to pulse with the truth she carried. I'm not delirious, Borislav. I saw it with my own eyes, or what's left of them, and with my heart. The girl, sensing the seriousness of the moment, hid her face in her grandmother's shoulder, but did not contradict her words. The patrol dogs, previously barking furiously, were now quiet, sniffing the air. One of them, an old and experienced husky, gave a low growl, almost a whimper, and looked in the direction where the tigers had disappeared. Anya noticed the dog's behavior. Even the animals sensed the truth, the absence of threat. Come, Anya, Borislav said, extending a hand to help her. The path is long, and the cold is unforgiving. He avoided the subject of the tigers, a tactic to postpone the discussion, but Anya knew the issue wouldn't disappear. It was an immense obstacle, harder to overcome than any ice mountain. Her community's faith, their trust in her wisdom, was at stake. She felt the weight of the village on her shoulders, the need to rewrite a legend of terror into one of compassion. As the patrol turned to begin the return, Anya looked back at the empty clearing. In the snow, the tiger tracks were large and deep, but there was no trace of blood, no struggle, only the mark of a presence, of a miracle. She knew she would need more than words to convince her people. She would need faith, patience, and the purity of her granddaughter, who was living proof of a truth that Yakutia, in its brutality, also held. Unexpected empathy. Anya's challenge was not just to survive, but to transform everyone's perception. Anya, with her granddaughter snuggled in her arms, felt the night's cold deepen, but her spirit burned with renewed determination. The path back to the village was a journey not only through snow and ice, but through the invisible barriers of disbelief and fear. Borislav and the other hunters kept a respectful distance, but Anya felt their hesitant glances, doubts hovering like unmelted snowflakes. The girl, warmed by her grandmother's body and recent memories of wild warmth, dozed, a small burden of hope and truth. Anya thought of the village fires, of the familiar faces awaiting her. How would she tell the story? Words seemed small and fragile before the magnitude of what she had witnessed. The legend of the 700 Siberian tigers, relentless predators, was etched into her people's soul. To challenge it would be like trying to stop an avalanche with her bare hands. But she had to try. For the girl, for the tigers, for the truth that Yakutia in its complexity had revealed. Borislav, at the head of the group, turned his head occasionally, observing Anya. The relief of seeing the girl alive was immense, but the story of the tigers deeply disturbed him. He knew Anya, respected her as an elder, but his hunter's mind refused to accept it. Tigers were enemies, not guardians. He tried to find a logical explanation. Perhaps the cold had affected the old woman's mind, or the girl, in her panic, had imagined the animals, but the child's calm, the consistent account, however unbelievable, bothered him. Anya felt the crunch of snow beneath Borislav's feet, the muffled sound of the other hunters' boots. She knew they were silently discussing, exchanging worried glances. Not for her being in danger, but for her sanity. A pang of sadness hit her, but was quickly replaced by an inner strength. Truth didn't need belief to be real. It existed, and Anya was its witness. The small mammoth bone amulet, hanging around her granddaughter's neck, brushed her cheek. It was a tangible reminder of ancestral protection, but also of the new, wild, and unexpected protection. Anya closed her eyes for an instant, visualizing the amber and dark eyes of the tigers, the gentleness in their movements. The village needed to see this, not just hear it. The girl stirred in Anya's arms, opening her eyes. "Grandma, will we see the tigers again?" Her voice was innocent, devoid of any fear. Anya smiled, a tired smile, but full of love. "Perhaps one day, my love. But now, we need to show everyone how brave you were." Borislav, hearing the girl's question, felt a chill. The child didn't seem scared. This complicated everything. He quickened his pace, eager to reach the village, where the light of the fires and the presence of other elders might bring some clarity. The village would be the stage for this revelation, and he feared what it would mean for the community's peace. Anya smelled the smoke from the fires, faint at first, but increasingly present. The outline of the huts began to emerge in the darkness, small patches of light against the infinite white. Anya's heart pounded, a mixture of relief and apprehension. The physical journey was almost over, but the true ordeal, that of convincing, was about to begin. She pressed her granddaughter against her, feeling the small life pulse, irrefutable proof that the impossible had happened. She was the bridge between two worlds, and her voice, however fragile, would be the messenger of a new legend. The village needed to understand that Yakutia was not just a place of challenges, but of miracles, where the most unexpected compassion could blossom even among the most feared predators. As Anya and her granddaughter approached the first limits of the village, the murmur of voices transformed into a chorus of exclamations. Women, their faces etched with worry, ran from the huts, followed by men and children. The flickering light of the fires and lamps illuminated the snow, creating dancing shadows that seemed to amplify the tension and hope. The sight of Anya, the elder with the girl in her arms, sparked a wave of relief that swept through the crowd. Cries of joy mingled with tears of gratitude. A woman, the girl's mother, burst from the crowd, her eyes fixed on her daughter. With a sob, she ran and embraced the girl, who nestled into her chest, safe and warm. Anya handed over her granddaughter, feeling an emptiness in her arms, but a fullness in her heart. The mother kissed her daughter's hair, tears streaming freely. Neighbors approached, touching the girl, checking if she was truly unharmed. There was a miracle there, visible to all. But the initial euphoria quickly gave way to questions. The village elders, men and women of wisdom and experience, formed a circle around Anya. Their faces, though relieved, bore an expression of deep curiosity and, Anya perceived, skepticism. Borislav, the patrol leader, stood beside them, his gaze divided between the elder and the girl. "Anya, my sister," began one of the elders, old Yegor, his voice grave and thoughtful. "How did you find her? Where was she? And how? How is she so well?" The last question hung in the air, laden with silent incredulity. Anya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all eyes on her. Her blurred vision barely distinguished the details of their faces, but she felt the intensity of their expectation. "She was safe," Anya began, her voice hoarse but firm, "in the heart of the forest, protected from the cold." She paused, searching for the right words, knowing the next sentence would be the hardest. "She was." with the tigers. A murmur of shock rippled through the crowd. Some recoiled, others exchanged looks of astonishment and confusion. The girl's mother hugged her daughter tighter, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief. "Tigers, Anya?" Yegor repeated, his brow furrowed. "Are you speaking of the 700 Siberian tigers that steal our cattle and threaten our children, those we hunt with fear and respect?" Anya extended a hand, a slow and uncertain gesture. "They were not like the ones we know, Yegor. They were not predators. They kept her warm. 2 of them, enormous, nestled beside her, protecting her from the blizzard." The girl, hearing her grandmother, lifted her head from her mother's shoulder. "Yes, the tigers are my friends, Mama. They're so warm, and they gave me licks." Her childish voice, full of innocence and conviction, resonated in the silence that followed. The girl's mother looked at her daughter, then at Anya, a battle of emotions on her face. The relief of having her daughter back fought against the terror of the story. Borislav stepped forward. "Elder, cold and exhaustion can make us see things. We know you love her, but tigers don't act like that. The legend is clear." His voice was respectful, but the doubt was palpable. "The legend might be wrong, Borislav," Anya replied, her voice gaining unexpected strength. "I saw it with my own eyes. I felt it with my heart. Yakutia has taught us that life is more complex than we think, that compassion can come from where we least expect it." The elders exchanged glances, their faces reflecting the difficulty of reconciling the legend with the testimony of the elder and the child. The village was divided between the joy of the return and the perplexity of a truth that challenged everything they knew. Anya knew that the journey of convincing was just beginning. The social obstacle was immense, rooted in generations of fear and hunting stories. But she had living proof in her granddaughter, and the conviction that the truth, however strange, needed to be told and accepted. She looked up at the starry sky, feeling the cold, but also the flame of a new purpose. The euphoria of the reunion, though still vibrant, began to give way to an atmosphere of uncertainty. The girl's mother, still embracing her daughter, looked at Anya with a mixture of love and a newly awakened fear. The elders, with Yegor at the forefront, kept their gazes fixed on the old woman, searching her features for the truth or a sign of delirium. Borislav, the hunter, remained silent, but his eyes scanned the girl, looking for any injury, any evidence that could disprove the surreal story. "Elder Anya," Yegor began again, his voice softer now, almost an appeal. "We understand your love for the girl, and the joy of having her back is immense for all of us. But tigers, 700 of them. It is a force of nature that has terrorized us for generations. How can we believe they became guardians?" He gestured towards the dark forest, as if the predators were still lurking. Anya felt the weight of tradition, of fear rooted in every fiber of the community. Her blurred vision did not prevent her from sensing the incredulity in everyone's eyes. She knew that words alone would not be enough. "Yegor, Borislav, my brothers and sisters," she said, her voice hoarse, but with a clarity that cut through the icy air. "I do not ask you to believe blindly. I ask you to look at the girl. She is unharmed. There is not a scratch. She was in the heart of the blizzard, alone, and she was warmed. Not by a spirit, but by creatures of flesh and blood whom we all fear." The girl's mother, who had been silent until then, hugged her daughter tighter. "But Grandma, the tigers, they eat our cattle. They are dangerous." Her voice was a whisper of dread, the image of predators in her mind battling against the living proof in her arms. The girl, sensing the tension, lifted her head. "They are my friends, Mama. They gave me warmth and protected me from the cold wind. The big dark-eyed one was very cuddly." She gestured with her small hands, trying to describe the size of the tigers. The child's innocence was a blow to the adult's skepticism. How could one deny the purity of her words? Borislav, who had hunted tigers his whole life, felt a tremor. He had seen the ferocity of these animals. But the girl, she showed no fear, only an affectionate memory. He looked at Anya, seeking an answer that his hunter's mind could not offer. Nature is vast and full of mysteries that our ancestral wisdom, however profound, has not yet fully unveiled, Anya continued, her voice now softer, almost melodic. We hunt out of necessity for survival, but perhaps in our struggle we have forgotten that we are part of a whole, that compassion is not only human, but an invisible link that connects all beings, even the wildest. She paused, sweeping the faces before her, even though her eyes barely distinguished them. I saw the truth, not with my weak eyes, but with my heart. And the truth is that Yakutia, in its brutality, also holds miracles. This girl is living proof that the legend of the 700 tigers needs to be rewritten, not with fear, but with a new understanding. Yegor, the elder, thoughtfully touched his chin. A new legend, Anya. That is a heavy burden for the village. How can we change what we have learned for generations? We don't change the past, Yegor, Anya replied, her voice firm. We expand it. We learn. Yakutia challenges us every day, and today it challenged us to see beyond what we know, to see justice where we once saw only danger, overcoming where we once saw only defeat. The village remained silent, Anya's words hanging in the cold air. The seed of doubt had been planted, not about the girl's safety, but about the very nature of the world they inhabited. Anya's task was monumental, but the flame of her purpose burned strong. She was not just telling a story, she was asking her people to open their hearts to a new truth, a truth that would redefine their place in the vast and enigmatic ice desert. The village remained silent, Anya's words hanging in the cold air. The seed of doubt had been planted, not about the girl's safety, but about the very nature of the world they inhabited. Anya's task was monumental, but the flame of her purpose burned strong. She was not just telling a story. She was asking her people to open their hearts to a new truth, a truth that would redefine their place in the vast and enigmatic ice desert. Old Yegor, his deep wrinkles marked by countless winters, stroked his grizzled beard, his eyes fixed on the elder. He had seen many miracles and many tragedies in Yakutia, but the idea of tigers as protectors was something that challenged the very foundation of his existence. Borislav, the hunter, still maintained an expression of skepticism, but his eyes, once hard, now held a glimmer of perplexity. He looked at the girl, then at Anya, as if trying to find a flaw, a logical explanation that didn't involve the unthinkable. The girl's mother, still embracing her daughter, felt the warmth of the small body, the soft breathing. It was real. Her daughter was alive and unharmed. But the story was an abyss between what she knew and what her mother, Anya, claimed to have seen. She hugged the girl tighter, a mixture of gratitude and an ancestral fear battling in her chest. Anya, feeling the weight of silence and disbelief, took a step forward, her movement slow but imbued with unwavering dignity. She extended her hand towards the girl, who disentangled herself from her mother's embrace and ran to her grandmother, nestling into her garments. Anya hugged her, the small mammoth bone amulet brushing against her neck. "Look at her," Anya said, her voice now a whisper that, paradoxically, filled the air with immense strength. There is no fear in her eyes. There are no injuries on her skin. She was not hunted, not harmed. She was warmed, protected by what you call monsters. She paused, sweeping the circle of faces with her blurred but penetrating gaze. Yakutia teaches us to survive, to fight, but it also teaches us to observe, to feel. And I felt it. I felt the wild compassion, the unexpected warmth. The heart of Yakutia is not made only of ice and danger, but also of a truth that transcends our understanding. The girl, sensing the emotion in her grandmother's voice, lifted her face. "Grandma, the big tiger gave me a kiss on the forehead." She touched her forehead with her finger, an innocent gesture that struck the villagers' hearts like an arrow. Yegor closed his eyes for an instant. The image of the tiger kissing the child's forehead, colliding with all the tales of terror he had told and heard. Borislav felt a chill that was not from cold. The purity of the girl's words, Anya's conviction, were tearing through the veil of their beliefs. "We fear what we don't understand," Anya continued, her voice rising slightly. "And we transform that fear into legends of destruction. But what if Yakutia is showing us something new? That life, in its wildest form, can teach us about the deepest empathy. That justice is not just ours, but nature's own." A murmur of voices began to rise, not of skepticism, but of uncertainty, of a new and unsettling reflection. Anya's seed was germinating. The village was not ready to fully accept, but the wall of their incredulity had cracked. The truth, however strange, had found a crack to enter their hearts. The heavy silence of the village gave way to murmurs, not of disbelief, but of confusion. The girl's mother, with her daughter, felt the ancestral terror of the tiger's battle against the image of her daughter, alive, unharmed. Speaking of the predators with affection, a tear streamed down, not from dread but from relief and new understanding. Yegor, the elder, raised his hand, asking for silence. His eyes, witnesses to almost a century of winter, fixed on Anya. He saw not madness, but conviction. "Anya," he said, his voice grave, "you have always been the guardian of our wisdom. But this truth demands that we rewrite who we are." Anya nodded, her blurred eyes conveying clarity. "Isn't that what Yakutia asks of us, Yegor? That we adapt, that we learn? The girl was saved by the compassion of enemies. If we cannot accept that, what can we?" Borislav in silence took a step. His expression, once stern, softened. He knelt before the girl. "Little Anya," he said gently, "weren't you scared? Didn't they hurt you?" The girl shook her head, eyes shining. "No, they kept me warm. The big tiger kissed me. I called him Kale. He's my friend." The word Kale, Yakut for guardian, uttered with innocence, struck Borislav. He remembered his grandparents' stories of ancient harmony with nature. He stood, his eyes meeting Anya's. "Perhaps," he said, his voice laden with acceptance, "the ancient wisdom wasn't wrong. Perhaps we have forgotten something important." Yegor, observing Borislav, felt the weight of generations of fear dissipate. Yakutia was brutal, but full of mysteries. The idea of compassion in the most feared predators was frightening yet liberating. "Anya," Yegor declared, his voice firm, "you have brought us not only the girl, but a truth that challenges us to look beyond fear, to seek connection. It will not be easy. Legends are strong, but the living proof is here." He pointed to the girl, smiling at her grandmother. "The story of the tigers will no longer be just terror, but empathy. We will rewrite this story. Together." The village, once skeptical, erupted in a murmur of reflection. Tense faces softened. The girl's mother embraced Anya, tears streaming. "Thank you, Mother," she whispered, "for showing us the truth." Anya felt the weight lift. The resolution was not the end of fear, but the beginning of a journey. The village would question beliefs, seeking new understanding. The truth, once planted, would blossom. The warmth of connection and empathy had melted the ice of incredulity. Little Anya, her amulet shining, was living proof that Yakutia held secrets of beauty and paradox, transforming everyone's perception of life and the invisible bond. The community embraced a new legend of altruism and compassion. The light of the fires seemed warmer now, not just physically, but with a warmth emanating from the villagers' hearts. The murmur of voices, once laden with doubt, transformed into a murmur of admiration and a new, hesitant hope. Anya, with her granddaughter nestled in her arms, felt a deep peace. The journey had not only been to rescue the girl, but to rescue a forgotten part of her community's soul, a lost link with the essence of Yakutia. The girl's mother, her eyes moist with gratitude, knelt beside Anya, holding her wrinkled hand with reverence. "Mother, what will we do now?" she asked, her voice a thread devoid of the previous dread. "How will we live with this new truth?" Anya smiled, a tired smile that illuminated her time-worn face. "We will live as always, my daughter, with respect for Yakutia, our home and teacher. But now, with a deeper respect that embraces mystery and compassion where we once saw only danger." She caressed her granddaughter's soft hair. "We will teach her, and everyone, that strength lies not just in hunting, but in understanding. That true courage is opening one's heart to what we don't understand." Yegor, the oldest elder, approached, his steps slow and thoughtful. He knelt too, his eyes meeting Anya's, conveying deep acceptance. "You have shown us a path, Anya, a difficult path, for it demands undoing generations of fears, but it is a true path." He looked at little Anya. "The girl is our bridge, living proof that nature has more to teach us." Borislav, who had remained silent, observing the scene with intensity, now spoke, his voice grave and thoughtful, laden with new humility. "I, who have spent my life hunting tigers, feel that my vision was incomplete. We can no longer see them only as enemies. We need to learn to coexist, to respect their place, even if it means changing how we think about ourselves." He touched the mammoth bone amulet around the girl's neck. "Kyle, the guardian." She named him. "It is a sign, a new legend being born." That night, the central campfire burned brighter than ever, illuminating minds and hearts. The villagers gathered, not only to celebrate the girl's return, but to begin a new era of understanding and connection. Anya, seated in her place of honor, observed the faces, the expressions of admiration and questioning. She knew that change would not be instantaneous. That ancestral fear would still whisper, but the seed was planted and the first roots were already deepening into the village's frozen soil. In the days that followed, the village began to adapt. Hunting patrols, though still necessary, were carried out with new reverence. Hunters looked at the tracks in the snow, not just for prey, but for signs, for a deeper understanding of wildlife. The story of little Anya and the protective tigers was told and retold, no longer as an impossible fairy tale, but as a truth that Yakutia had revealed. Little Anya, with her unwavering innocence and contagious smile, became the guardian of this new legend. She drew tigers in the snow with sticks, told stories of Kale and his amber-eyed friend to the other children, and her joy was a constant reminder of unexpected compassion. Her mother, once terrified, now saw in her daughter not a danger, but a miracle, a precious link to a part of nature previously incomprehensible and feared. Anya, the elder, felt her own days drawing to a close, but there was no sadness in her heart. There was fullness, a sense of purpose fulfilled. She had been the messenger of a truth that united family, community, and Yakutia itself in an unbreakable bond. The biting cold was still a daily reality, but now the village carried an inner warmth, a flame of hope and understanding that would never extinguish. The frozen vastness, once merely a relentless challenge, was now also a sanctuary of mysteries and profound human and natural connection. The legend of the 700 tigers, once a terror, transformed into a symbol of altruism, of overcoming, and of the paradoxical beauty of life in the ice desert. Yakutia, in its brutality and majesty, had spoken, and the village had listened, forever transformed by that silent and powerful voice. The village's transformation was not a single event, but a river that slowly meandered, carving new banks in the collective soul. In the following months, winter gave way to spring, then to summer. The deepest change was in the villagers' hearts. Hunting stories, once about bravery, now included respect and curiosity for the forest's secrets. Old fears tempered by admiration. Little Anya, a bit older, continued to be the beacon of this new era. Her drawings in the snow gave way to wood carvings, where she depicted Kale and his amber-eyed companion not as beasts, but as majestic guardians, blending with nature. The other children listened to her stories with wide eyes, not of fear, but of fascination. The girl's mother, who once trembled at the sound of tiger, now watched her daughter with serene pride, seeing the child's love for nature as a gift. She wove tiger-stripe patterns into her clothes, a gesture of acceptance and honor. Borislav, the hunter, was one of those who felt the change most deeply. His patrols became introspective and cautious. He no longer saw tigers merely as targets, but as part of a delicate ecosystem, beings with wisdom and purpose. Once, he found fresh tracks of a large tiger near the village. Instead of raising his spear, he knelt, touched the snow, and murmured a prayer of respect, unthinkable for the Borislav of old. He taught the young hunters not just to hunt, but to observe, coexist, and understand Yakutia's signs with an open heart. Yegor, the elder, dedicated himself to rewriting the village legends. In his evenings, by the flickering light of the campfire, he gathered young and old, telling the story of little Anya and the tigers, weaving it into tradition as a profound revelation. "Yakutia speaks to us," he would say, his voice grave and wise, and sometimes through what we least expect, through a wild embrace, an unexpected warmth. "Truth is not static, my children. It grows and expands like the forest." Anya, the elder, observed everything with a tranquil smile. Her eyes, though blurred, saw with a clarity that transcended physical sight. She felt the vibration of change in the air, the warmth of acceptance growing in every heart. Her mission was fulfilled. The village had not merely survived, it had evolved. It had embraced a greater truth, celebrating the interconnectedness of life, justice in nature, and the overcoming of fear through compassion. Gratitude filled her chest. In her moments of quietude, Anya held the mammoth bone amulet, feeling Yakutia's energy flow, a current of life and wisdom. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, that the biting cold and the dangers of the icy vastness would never disappear. But the village now possessed a new tool, a new understanding to face them, a strength born of unity and empathy. The invisible bond she had felt in the heart of the blizzard between the girl and the tigers had extended to the entire community, creating a web of respect and altruism that would protect them against the harshest winters, both bodily and of the soul. Yakutia, in its brutality and majesty, had revealed its deepest secret. Compassion is the most powerful force of all, capable of melting the densest ice.